Did it say it's recording? Could you see?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So hi, I'm Katie. I'm a third year business student. I play basketball here at San Marcos. And thank you for taking the time to interview with me. I appreciate it. Would you like to say your name and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Brad Larson. I'm the director of recruiting for one of the groups over at Optum, which is a subsidiary of United Health Group, is what more people kind of know it as.
That's fun. And how long have you been in that position?
Recruiting with the company a few years now. Just recently moved up to the director level.
Oh, nice. How long have you been with the company?
About 4 years. Started off
And
as just a contract recruiter, then got hired on pretty quickly, moved up to a team lead, then a team manager, and now I'm kind of director over the non-clinical operations side of things. So parts of the business that aren't doctors or nurses, more of a IT, cybersecurity, finance, business analyst, admin, kind of things on the business side.
um, what kind of does a day in your life look like?
It's always pretty busy. It's when they talk about organized chaos, this is definitely it. There's always a lot of irons in the fire, and kind of you really have to know what's going on, kind of with all of them, just for if anything that comes up. And then you're always getting pulled in different directions, and so it's just trying to stay organized, stay on top of things. But the kind of key to it is just slowly chip away at it if you can. Get a little traction on some, and just kind of keep moving forward, and eventually you kind of get there. And then another thing too is being able to manage people. So everybody kind of has the different style of how they work. So you kind of have to, adapt my style to go along with them, help them along, but not I don't want to micromanage and make them do things a certain way. So I try and figure out what's working for them and how I can support them.
You think that's kind of the hardest part of your job is having to be able to manage all these different people and how, what, like you said, like their styles?
It can be challenging at times. Most of the time, everybody's pretty, business comfortable. But sometimes, yeah, you really kind of gotta, hate to say like crack the whip, but if things aren't getting done, eventually you got to start coming down. Usually try and be just informative and supportive. What can I do to support you? What can I do to help? How are we both going to get from A to B? Sometimes when that's just not happening, whether the person below me, one of my team members is just kind of checked out, they have other priorities going on. I get stuff comes up, but we still have the job to do to get things done. So trying to be able to encourage and motivate them to kind of keep going that route, but kind of have to come down on them sometimes too, which isn't not a very fun part of the job, but ultimately it kind of it's got to get done.
Right. Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. Let me find my questions. One big thing that I know that I'm looking for in a job is having like a work balance, like being able to have my life as well as, but also putting in enough work that I need to and getting my stuff done. What do you think kind of some sacrifices that you've had to make, like kind of just throughout your career for work and being able to manage like both your lifestyle and work?
I think a lot of things is, when you hear about like the Monday through Friday 8 to 5 job, that's really kind of out the window now. Like there's
Mhm.
always things that are going to come up outside of those hours. You're going to have to work, long hours, whether it's, being able to get up early for some meetings and calls with people on the East Coast, or just the amount of work that you have to be able to get it done. So I think a lot of people now, even with the remote positions, that the work-life balance is pretty tough. Especially in the recruiting age now, since there's so many jobs available, so many companies trying to hire people to get them going. So it's definitely stepped up for us. And trying to make sure, again, to my previous point, staying on top of my team. But I do have to realize that they need that work-life balance too, because you don't want to get people to get, too burned out, then they leave. Now that workload just gets transferred to everybody else, and it's just kind of a snowball effect. So I kind of knowing what your goals are, what needs to get done, and coming up with a plan to get organized for it. Organization is key. It'll definitely help you get things done in a timely manner, know what needs to get done, and just kind of getting from A to B.
So you're a director of recruiter. What is like the recruiting process? Like, what do you guys like? I guess I'm kind of curious, like, what are you recruiting for again? Sorry.
So yeah, our group is kind of non-clinical operations. So it's with Optum Health, but not doctors or nurses or people that work kind of in like the clinics or pharmacies or anything like that. So it's more on like the business side, IT, business analyst, admin support, things along those lines. So kind of one of the new aspects of my role is working with the kind of the directors of these groups that cover large territories. to figure out what they're going to have coming up, what their needs are. And then once kind of the job requisitions get approved, they'll come over to my screen, and then I'll kind of divvy them up to, my team. I try and look at, who's under capacity, who can handle another position to work on, if they've worked with that manager before, if they've worked that type of positions before. I try and set them up for success with that. Doesn't always match up perfectly, but try and do the best to kind of make it a streamlined process for everybody.
Okay. And I know in our business classes and stuff, we talk about the importance of like networking. How would you say like the top ways of networking and how you go about networking to get new business, new clients and all that? What would you suggest?
Yeah, just start reaching out to people. I mean, get on LinkedIn and start connecting with people from there. Once it's tough to start off, but once you kind of get into an industry, you can start connecting the pieces from there. So, before this role, when I worked with the Home Depot corporate field team, connected with a lot of people there. And now when I had positions that came up and I knew somebody in that role from a previous job, I can connect with them. And it goes the other way too. If you're looking for a job, you can kind of connect with people, through LinkedIn. But yeah, definitely kind of just want to build those relationships just so you have them. And anything too, even at your age, if you guys are just using Facebook, I know there's like the Facebook jobs, things like that. But it's kind of, when you hear the expression, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
A fair amount of truth to that. Not even just this profession, but I've known a lot of, people that they've gotten their jobs just from people they know. They're more than capable of doing the duties of that role, but they probably wouldn't have gotten it just if they were kind of an unknown.
Mm-hmm. I also know internships are a huge thing. Did you have any internships before, like any of your careers and anything, or like would you suggest internships and all that? Kind of like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, they're can go a bunch of ways. Definitely do the internship because it will get you the real world experience and kind of what you want to do. So you'll get to see it firsthand. There's a lot you learn in school about business, but actually getting out there and doing that work is a different level. I remember back in college, took business classes just like you. And, after 3 years and then the job I had as an account manager, I kind of learned more in that first 3 months of how businesses actually work than in the first 3 years of college. So getting that experience, it really is a different level. If you do have the opportunity, definitely take it. Make sure it's something that you might want to do though. Don't just take something just because. Make sure it's like an industry or a field that you're already interested in, that you could be passionate about versus just, hey, I need to do this for a class.
Do you have any suggestions on how to get internships?
Start reaching out to people that you can honestly email companies, find like their role. There's tons of internship programs available. Like you can look up, on the job boards, like internships, they'll have them in there. I know there's like a lot of companies. I'm not sure who handles it on our side, but there's a lot of companies that'll have like recruiters that do, recruit throughout college to start off in internship programs. A lot of times when they do that too, that actually, it's almost like a temp to hire type deal, or to test them out to hire. Their goal is you're coming in as an intern. A lot of times there will be a position available at the end if all kind of goes well. They don't want to sign up right away, make sure it's a good fit for both parties. But yeah, just start reaching out to companies or start looking up, for internships, online. I'm sure there's job boards. A lot of them will be paid too, but it's more of just kind of like a quick stint to kind of see what both parties think, like a trial run.
I know I'm trying to find like another intern or an internship for next summer. I'm not sure where to look and who or where I would even go. So I think these interviews will help a lot. That way I can kind of get an idea on what I'm looking for. But I know I'm on marketing major. Do you know how like the marketing works on like your company and kind of like if it relates to recruitment at all?
Not a whole lot. I know there's kind of like a whole separate marketing team that when something needs to get done, they take over and just do their thing. So they keep us in the loop, but they keep us in the dark at the same time. So they kind of, if there's a career event needs to come up, we let them know about that, and they kind of handle everything, to try and take stuff off our plate. So don't know a whole lot about that side of things, but I know it's there.
All right. What kind of business skills do you think are like a necessity, like in any kind of business fields?
Communication, oral communication, written communication. You're definitely, whatever business field you go into, you're going to be working with a lot of people. So just being able to communicate back and forth with them, trying to understand what they need. And then when you're explaining things too, being able to explain it in different ways if somebody doesn't understand, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So I think any part of business you go into, or, any job anywhere for the most part, that's kind of a huge thing. So that's probably the number one thing.
I know you work with a lot of teams and like groups and other people. Do you think that's kind of a skill set too, like learning how to work with other people and everything?
Yeah. You definitely see it. I know, yeah, when you're in school and you have like those group projects, you have kind of the different groups, and everybody kind of brings a different strength or a weakness to the group and what needs to get done. So it's tough trying to delegate and figure out how to accomplish everything with that team you have. Getting from A to B with this certain group will be a different process than getting from that same A to B with this other group.
Mhm.
So being able to kind of adapt and adjust to be able to accomplish your goals is a huge thing. And again, that goes back to the kind of the communication skills, like how to work well with people.
Mhm. Do you have any cons of where you're at right now, or any cons in your prior jobs, and anything kind of what you would be like, oh, be worried this could happen or that could happen? Like,
Well, right now it is pretty busy. So it is kind of, like I said, organized chaos. So sometimes it does get a little chaotic, and there's just a lot of things going on at once that you really kind of have to, like you said, that work-life balance to be able to understand that it's okay to take a step back.
mhm.
And the work will be there, you can get there. But to kind of keep your own sanity is to, just make sure you have that balance in there. But yeah, any job you have, you're gonna have your ups, but you're gonna have your downs too. And just kind of realizing just the downs aren't always going to be there, to work through them, and then you're kind of back at the status quo again. So yeah, just those tough things, the challenges that come up, just work through them, and you'll get there.
I'm kind of curious, like, have you ever had to deal with like, so obviously you're a director and like you kind of like, you're like, you have to manage a team or however many people you work with. Like, if you've ever had like a conflict or like a hard time with them, like, how did you kind of go about it? Like, what's the right way of going about like conflict within the your like little office or anything? Like, what's the right way?
Well, if this current role is just kind of, working with the team, making sure they're up to speed. But I think back when I was, just a regular recruiter working with a lot of the hiring managers, they all kind of want something different, and a lot of times they don't explain things very well, or they're tough to get follow up on. Um, Kind of they'll tell you one thing, and then you go that route, and then all of a sudden it changes, or you're not doing it right because of something. And it's like you want to say, you kind of want to tell them, this is exactly what I told you told me to do, and that's
Mhm.
exactly what I did, and here's like the proof of it. But you kind of really have to just bite your tongue, and it's like, okay, well, what can I do better, for next time? What are we looking for? What should I look out for? Things along those lines. So yeah, sometimes when I say communication is great, some of these other people don't have the best communication skills to kind of get back to you to work for that same goal. They kind of have very one-sided on on their thought process.
What's like your work schedule like? Like, are you the 8 to 5, or is it kind of vary on just like how many people you're dealing with at a certain time? So like Mondays are crazy, but then Tuesdays are a little less light, or are you strictly 8 to 5?
It's supposed to be kind of like the Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 is what they tell you. But ultimately with your, these like soured positions, it's, you go to the work's done. But again, you do got to take your breaks. Kind of being out here on the West Coast, I do sometimes try and get going a little early. If, there's things, people on like the East Coast that I need to speak with, and they're only available kind of in the morning on their time, I'll have to get up early just to, speak with them. So sometimes that comes up. But yeah, just being able to, that work-life balance, and knowing that there's work. I could work 24 hours a day. There's no stop to this job. So it's being able to, again, stay organized and find a starting point, find a stopping point, and then regroup, kind of thing.
I didn't even think about that, about like the time change in the East Coast and they're ahead. So we have to wake up earlier. I didn't even think about that.
It's not too bad. It doesn't come up very often, but just something with all these like remote positions, it's just something to kind of be mindful about. Yeah, like, because if you look at like the workday, there really is only like a 4 hour set, 4 or 5 hour set, where everybody in all time zones are kind of working together. So sometimes, there'll be, people even on like people on my team that work on the East Coast, and they're speaking with groups on the West Coast, that, they need to have a meeting, but none of them are free until 3 p.m., Pacific time, where we are. Well, that's 6 out in Atlanta, where one of my teammates is. So you just kind of got to adjust to make it happen.
How has COVID impacted your work life? Like whether you were at a prior position to this or now you're here, like kind of how did you have to deal with that?
Uh, yeah, well, with this one, it's more of the vaccination status that kind of threw a wrench into our system a couple months ago. So they kind of had to come up with a kind of some rules. You know, if you're working 100% telecommute, no chance of going into the office or on site anywhere, then you don't need to be vaccinated. But if you're going to be on site or even work remotely, but the possibility of going to a site, you'll have to be vaccinated. So there was a little pushback from some candidates, kind of in that gray area where we wanted to move forward with them. But then all of a sudden that rule changed, and then they didn't want to do that, and then we're kind of starting from scratch again. So kind of that's with this role. Previous roles, kind of when COVID just hit, it was just kind of nobody wanted to work, nobody wanted to go anywhere. Everybody wanted, well, I can't work, I don't feel comfortable, and I need to get paid, and there wasn't really any rules or guidelines for kind of how to handle everything. So you kind of, I don't want to say you had to make them up. You just kind of had to wing it and be like, let's figure this out how we can.
So are you guys able to like travel anywhere for your work, or you only either go to your office or you work remotely?
I'm 100% from home, right?
Okay.
So I
Do you
think
like that?
our department will have uh, meetings that can come up down the road. I think there's a lot of these groups have stayed away from travel because of COVID, but now that the mandates are kind of relaxing, there might be some travel that comes up. So we could go into a site somewhere, and it's more of just like an office somewhere for like a group
Oh,
meeting or meeting. But everything's staying remote for us for now. But again, new to this position, so I think
that
it'll
makes
come up at some point.
that
But I
makes
used to travel for a previous job too, so it's kind of nice getting out and about on the company dime.
So going from a company where you were able to travel and then going to one where you're fully remote, kind of how is that transition? I feel like that's a huge change.
Yeah, wasn't too bad. The other position I had, I like to travel, but again, you're kind of away a lot, so you're never home to do anything. You're kind of on the road, and then you get back for like the weekend, just a chance to basically unpack and then repack, and then you're out again. So there was times where it was just week after week of that it got a little exhausting. Um, but ultimately it wasn't too bad. And then the remote positions are great because you're working from home, so you don't have to get up, no sitting in the 405 traffic. So that's pretty good. But yeah, they are great, and I explained to a lot of people too when I did the recruiting that they are great, but you can go a little stir crazy. So those trips that come up, being able to get out and about on the company dime is a nice little reward. I
Right.
know a lot of these roles they're doing kind of like a hybrid type right now. So you'll have 2 to 3 days like in the office, and then 2 to 3 days work from home. So they found that's been working well for people. There's no office here for me to go to really,
Oh,
but some companies, some groups, they're not fully remote, but not fully in office, but people seem to be receptive of that hybrid type position. Where you're still kind of going in to an office, getting work done, being around people, your coworkers.
mhm.
But then other days you're able to work from home. So it's kind of nice.
I'm glad you said that because I think that it made me like think about like what I would want. I think I would want to go into an office and be able to talk to people. I think if I were to work at home, I would, not saying I would be ineffective, but I think I would just be more effective and more productive if I was in an office working
It
with other
is, you
people.
definitely get more stuff done in an office.
Right.
Work from home again with that staying organized, because there are
Yeah.
a lot of distractions that can kind of come up when you work from home, or you start doing stuff around the house and wait, I got to get back to the computer.
Yeah.
But I think for anybody coming out of college and going into the workforce, kind of the first job, definitely want to do something like on-site, either a hybrid or on-site first, just to get that experience, what the office work is like, and then maybe down the road transition over to more remote type work. But I think coming out, you definitely need that experience to kind of see how everything's done. It'd be very tough to do a remote position straight out of college as your first role. It's not unheard of, but I would recommend kind of either the hybrid or going into the office for the first role at least, or kind of like the internship like you said.
Yeah, definitely. I think getting an internship and actually going to a work office and seeing kind of how the business world runs and the company is and all that, and then being able to decide like, okay, is this really something that I want to do and all that? Because I know another thing we talk about is like morals and ethics of a company and your bosses and CEOs and all them. Have you ever dealt with a company or boss that didn't have the same morals or ethics that you had? You guys didn't really align, and kind of how was that if you did experience that?
Not really so far right now. Like our CEO of United Health Group, Andrew Whitty, he's been great. I came in, everybody had good things to say about him. He'll do these fireside chats, once every couple months, like once a quarter, and it's just like a webcast where he gives us like an update on everything. He'll field some questions, but he kind of seems very personable. The company I was with before, when I was at Home Depot corporate, Craig Menear was the CEO then, and kind of the same thing. Just great across the board, and it really does help the company, everybody else, when you have a CEO that's very personable, kind of guy like that. But yeah, you do see like in the news sometimes, like these CEOs, I guess they're just new, just kind of don't know what they're doing. Maybe they'd be with some smaller companies. I forget who it was. I don't know if it was Zoom who we're talking to right now, or it was a different one, but I thought the CEO of some company fired hundreds of employees over a Zoom call. So something like that.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. So yeah, sometimes they just don't know what they're doing, but so far my experience is they definitely have a good resume to have that role, and it definitely shows kind of when they're kind of leading the company in the directions.
That's good to hear. That's kind of like my last question. You kind of touched upon it already, but like kind of what advice would you give to someone who's graduating in the spring, like and going into a whole new like world, essentially a whole new business world that they've never been in?
I don't know. I'm trying to remember my first role out of college. It was just kind of go with the flow. It'll be a little nerve wracking at first, trying to get everything set, because it is, like you said, a whole new environment, new set. I mean, in college, you're paying to go there, so you kind of definitely have a lot of freedom to do whatever you want. Well, now it's changing. They're paying you to get this work done, so that the expectations are a lot higher, and you're held a lot more accountable for that. So kind of just keeping that mindset going into it, but knowing, figuring out if it's what you want to do also. I mean, just whatever you graduate with, whenever you go in, it's not a forever thing. If you don't like it, you can always switch to something else. But yeah, you definitely need to just get that experience, and just go in knowing that the expectations are going to be a lot higher for the standards that they're going to hold you to.
Well, thank you again for taking the time to do this with me. I very much appreciate it. I've learned a lot. And I'm kind of excited to see what the future holds for me and you. I guess see where you go. Maybe you get leveled up again, hopefully. But yeah, no, thank you. This has been great.
Perfect. Yeah. If you need any more follow-up or anything, let me know.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Katie.